webinar part 2 for this personal development series. My name is Mahogany Williams, but everyone calls me Mo, and I am the Chief Digital Officer of MOtacular. Public speaking coaching is one of the services that we offer. So this is part 2, as mentioned, of a series. So we are going to briefly go over some of the things that we covered in part 1. So we went over what public speaking is. We went over the actual definition of public speaking, which is speaking to a live audience. Then we covered some common settings that you find yourself in for public speaking, and you may not even realize it. One thing being like a formal setting, a wedding or a small or fancy dinner party where you're sitting at a table with individuals sharing your evening, small talk, catching up on current events. That would be an example of a setting you would find yourself in engaging in public speaking. Third thing that we went over was the 4 types of public speaking, which basically sets the foundation on your preparation for your audience. So the acronym that I used was API. So are you speaking to actuate, another word for motivation? Are you speaking to persuade? Or are you speaking to inform? Or are you speaking to entertain? You would cover one or multiple areas of that to prepare for your public speaking. And then the last thing we went over is some techniques, basic techniques that you can use for public speaking to kind of help with those nerves that a lot of people have when it comes to public speaking. As mentioned in the previous webinar, 1 in 4 Americans are afraid of public speaking. Now, when you think of how many people are in America, that's a lot of people that have that fear of public speaking. So hopefully between part 1 and part 2, I can give you some tools that would kind of help individuals with those public speaking fears. First, I would like to start with the quote. I went over this last time, a quote by Warren Buffett. He's a well-known investment guru, and he is one of the richest businessmen in the world. And what he has to say about public speaking is, be sure to do it, whether you like it or not. Do it until you get comfortable with it. Public speaking is an asset that will last you 50 or 60 years, and it's a necessary skill. And if you don't like doing it, that will also last you 50 or 60 years. Once you tackle the fear and master the skill, you can run the world. You can walk into rooms, command people, and get them to listen to you and your great ideas. So the discussion points for today will be public speaking and the workplace in your career, or for any business owners that may be listening in this afternoon. Then we'll identify some things that you can use to know what works for you when it comes to public speaking, because of course everyone is different. So what will work for one individual, of course it won't work for you. And then the last thing we'll cover is your body language. Body language is so important when it comes to public speaking, especially if you're in one of those public settings of face-to-face, or if you're on a stage at a podium, or if you're on a stage and it doesn't necessarily have a podium, some things that you need to keep in mind when you're talking to your audience. So when it comes to the workplace and public speaking, you want to think about public speaking and how vital it is for your career. So let's go over some information when it comes to the workplace, what employers look for in new hires, as well as employees that are there who are looking to move up or move to a new position within the organization. So 93% of employers mention that soft skills and public speaking falls under being under the umbrella of soft skills. Is 93% mention that soft skills is very important for a new hire or someone in the company that they look to move up or to have them engage in the company as far as like presentations and things of that sort, where they will be one-on-one with customers. So when you think about the workplace or your career being a business owner, you can think of some things that may require these soft skills. You may have to do a professional presentation, well, where you will be in front of a customer or other co-workers, and you have to bring a new product or expand on a new product, anything like that, or bring a new idea to the table. That's an example of a professional presentation, and your soft skill and public speaking skills will definitely be important. Another example would be a training event. So if you're a business owner or if you're an employee, you have found something or they've found something in you that you have become an expert in, and they want you to train customers, or they want you to do a webinar such as this, or they want you to train someone else in that information. They trust you enough to take that on by yourself. The last thing would be motivational speaking. So in a workplace environment, if you've been at a company, say 5, 6, 7 years, and they have new hires coming in, they may see those good qualities in you and they want you to be a mentor. So those are all examples of what would require public speaking in the workplace. And when you participate in those areas, you want to make sure that you're enthusiastic. We don't want an Eeyore. We don't need a Debbie Downer or someone who's lackluster, because what you find yourself in is you have a solid product or a proposal to bring forward. And if you're not enthusiastic, then it's less enticing, or you're less engaged with the audience. So when you are not a polished public speaker and you haven't practiced, then you could really turn something wonderful upside down, and you really want to avoid that. And while you're speaking and being enthusiastic, you want to make sure that you're able to adjust. Because if you think about the workplace 10 years ago, a lot of those things that were required are not necessary now. You know, it wasn't really focused around technology. It wasn't really focused around a team effort. It was individual effort. What can you bring to the table? And that was all. So companies have really turned the switch and are looking more towards technology. As you can see in today's world, we're using more Zoom meetings. We're having Microsoft Teams meetings. And then they also have looked towards collaborative efforts, you know, a team environment. And when you think about collaborating or a team environment, you could really find yourself being a leader if you continue to practice and tap into those soft skills. So when you tap into those soft skills, you are able to be specific and toot your own horn to know specifically what you do well when it comes to public speaking or those soft skills. When it comes to that information, and you have 93% of employers who say how important soft skills are, it's okay to specify what you do well. Do you engage with the audience well? Is your tone good? What about eye contact? All of those things are important when it comes to being specific on what you're good at. As mentioned, 3 specific examples would be articulation. You know, are you able to enunciate? Are you able to speak loudly? Are you able to use proper grammar when it's necessary? You know, are you able to use the power of pauses? You know, take a second to get rid of some of that nervousness as opposed to using those distraction words, saying saying and, those sorts of words, saying that so much that it distracts the audience from, you know, what you want them to learn from the information that you're bringing. Next, you would be able to look at your presentation style, you know, your tone, your body language, what does it say? Your facial expression. Are you up there looking mean? You know, here and there, do you flash a smile? And then lastly, you need to understand what your audience needs. Are you presenting or speaking to an audience that's okay if you throw out a joke here and there? They don't mind. Or are you in an environment where they just want the technical details? They just want the facts, and that's really all that they need. So, with that information, here's an example of an individual that has been able to tap into the things that they do well and display it on a big stage. Can you guys hear that?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Let's see.
Stay in the ring and learn from those past fights, at the end of each round, you'll be still standing. Mr. Contest Chair, fellow fighters, can you think of a time when life tried to knock you down? Who was your toughest opponent? Most often, our most challenging opponent is ourselves. Round 1, college. I dropped out of college, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 times. I told myself, college isn't for me, and I would never go back. Round 2, marriage. I married my soulmate, the love of my life, my best friend. He was fine too. We were married for 8 long, beautiful, amazing months. You heard right, months, not years. It was like immediately after we said I do, the heavyweight champion came in and delivered an electrifying knockout blow to our vows. Boom! Divorced. Round 3, speaking. In 2015, I competed for the first time in the international speech contest. I won at the club level, I won at the area level. I won at the division level. Then the district level was on the way. I was on the road. I was on fire. I was unstoppable. I lost. I was crushed. After going 3 rounds and taking hit after hit, I was ready to throw in the towel. I was down for the count. 6, 7, 8. When was the last time life knocked you down? Who was that lifeline that you reached out to help you stand back up? Was it your family, your friends, or did you hold on to your faith? Maybe you've never been knocked down, but you've seen one of your family members take a devastating blow. Were you the lifeline that they were reaching out to help them stand back up? Were you the coach in the corner saying, get up, stand up? As I gathered all the strength within myself to pick myself back up, stand. Instead of looking into a mirror of defeat, it became a window of possibilities. I got back in the ring. I went back to college. I got my degree and I graduated magna cum laude. Yeah. After failing 4 times, I was still standing. After my loss at the district level, I'm speaking to you from the World Championship stage. It's a moment. Thank you. Even after suffering loss, I'm still standing. As for my marriage, I'm still in training. I have not yet found Mr. Right, but this is an international convention. And there are thousands of men from hundreds of different countries. So single Toastmasters, even after my divorce, I'm still standing. My challenge to you is to stay in the ring, whether you're a fighter or a coach. If you're on the side of the ring coaching, or if you're in that ring throwing those jabs and those hooks, when that final bell rings, ding, 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 the fighters and the coaches will raise their hands in victory singing, I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah. We're still standing. Very nice. Stay in that ring. And even after you take a few hits, use what you learned from those previous fights, and at the end of each round, you'll remain still standing. Mr. Content.
As you can see with Ramona and that Toastmasters public speaking contest, how well she moved on that open stage, how well she used her tone and her facial expressions, and also her body language. She did really well in all of those. And in 2018, she actually was the world champion for the Toastmasters competition. And on the topic of body language, you need to know what works for you. You have to know yourself well enough to know what works for you. So if you are an individual that is not good with public speaking and you don't really know where to start, that's okay. You can start small talk, a few friends, a few family members, or even in the mirror. You can use that time to become better, realize your facial expressions, know what works, what doesn't work, and what you need to just practice on and become better. Because at the beginning, as mentioned, 93% of employers mention how important these soft skills are. So when you have that small talk, that falls into preparation. So when you have proper preparation, it promotes proper performance. So when you prepare, are you using visualization? If you're using visualization, is it just a bunch of words? Will it keep the audience engaged? Are you using objects? Are you using pictures? Are you using things that pop? So you need to make sure that you prepare well enough to know yourself when it comes to public speaking, so you can know what does and does not work for you. And then you want to make sure that you're stress-free. I went over this in the first part of the webinar series. When you breathe deeply from the bottom part of your stomach, you're actually telling your brain to calm down. Once you tell your brain to calm down, then it sends that information to the rest of your body. So when you pair that deep breathing with drinking water and hydrating your body, you're actually reducing that stress hormone that tends to come over people when they think about public speaking. And as mentioned, also, a lot of people have a fear of public speaking. As mentioned, 1 out of 4 Americans, that's a lot of people when you think about how many people are in America. And that's a lot of people. And they often say that they're not good at public speaking. They're terrible. They're this and they're that. But if you ask someone that was in the audience watching them speak and they're getting feedback, they realize that they really didn't do as bad as they thought that they did. So you have to just get out of your own mind. You have to get out of your own way. And then you have to know how to keep your audience engaged. What's needed to keep them engaged? If you're on a stage and it doesn't have a podium, make sure that you're able to move around and use up that space. Eye contact, get closer to the audience when needed. Your tone, your pitch, don't be lackluster. Don't be an Eeyore up there. Make sure that you're able to drive those ideas home. And body language, when it comes to public speaking and the audience is able to actually see you, you need to know what body language says when it comes to public speaking. Because as mentioned, that fear, and it's actually called glossophobia, which is fear of the tongue, and the fear of public speaking. When you're able to use your body to express yourself, it actually helps with the nervousness that you have also. So you have to master your body, master it, so you're able to do well with this soft skill. When you're able to do well with this soft skill, you actually get a leg up on a lot of people, because it's 59% of people that struggle with these soft skills when it comes to the workplace. So 59%, that's over half of the people in the work field, in the workplace, who struggle with public speaking. So if you master your body, you're able to calm your nerves, you're able to engage your audience, then you put yourself above that 59%. And when it comes to mastering the body, here are some things that you can rely on. You know, your posture. Stand up straight, shoulders back, feet about shoulder length apart, and keep your body open. You know, if you're on a stage and you're talking out to an audience, you don't want to turn your back to the audience or, you know, do some things that's awkward. What if I was just sitting here playing with my hair or touching my nose while I'm trying to give a webinar? It would be distracting. You know, you would have a hard time paying attention to the message that I'm trying to convey. So some things that you also don't want to do is you don't want to cross your arms. You don't want to have your hands in your pocket. You don't want to slouch. You want to make sure that you're standing straight, and it also helps with the projection of your voice. And then those gestures that I mentioned, using your hands, it helps so much because it allows for you to use your body to express an idea or a meaning. And it helps, as mentioned, with those nerves. I'm always going to go back to the nervousness of public speaking because that's one of the biggest things that people mention when you ask them, so why are you afraid to speak? Why can't you talk to those people? Because I'm afraid. That's the first thing that they're going to mention. So using your hands and your bodies to kind of help with that stress, just keep that in mind. Also, using the visuals to your advantage. You know, here you see in the webinar, the visual isn't very crowded. There isn't thousands of words up on the screen. No one's going to be able to browse over to the visual and keep up with what you're talking about if it's too crowded. And then lastly, your body language with those gestures, like a smile, can come across to the audience of you being welcoming and warm. So keep those in mind and use those things to your advantage. And then the last portion of body language is movement and eye contact. As mentioned, if you're on that stage or you're in a room and you don't necessarily have to stick behind a podium, you want to use that to your advantage. Walk side to side sometimes. And then when you get to points in your presentation where you want to persuade the audience or you want to encourage them, you can take the time to move closer to them. And while you're closer to them, use eye contact to scan across the room. Or some people with that nervousness, they kind of focus on one person or one object in the room, and that's okay as well. And when you make eye contact, it comes across as sincere and credible. Just imagine if you had to talk to someone who's not having eye contact with you. They can come off as someone who's not credible, who's not sincere, who's not truthful. So you want to make sure that you keep that eye contact consistent when it comes to public speaking. And when it comes to everything that we discussed, this last video is going to show some of the things I think one of the better public speakers that I've witnessed within the few years.
I can't do that. If our democracy is to work the way it should in this increasingly diverse nation, then each one of us need to try to heed the advice of a great character in American fiction, Atticus Finch, who said, "You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view." For blacks and other minority groups, that means tying our own very real struggles for justice to the challenges that a lot of people in this country face. Not only the refugee or the immigrant or the rural poor or the transgender American, but also the middle-aged white guy who from the outside may seem like he's got advantages, but has seen his world upended by economic and cultural and technological change. For white Americans, it means acknowledging that the effects of slavery and Jim Crow didn't suddenly vanish in the 60s. For too many of us, it's become safer to retreat into our own bubbles, surrounded by people who look like us and share the same political outlook and never challenge our assumptions. If every economic issue is framed as a struggle between a hardworking white middle class and an undeserving minority, then workers of all shades are going to be left fighting for scraps while the wealthy withdraw further into their private enclaves. If we're unwilling to invest in the children of immigrants just because they don't look like us, we will diminish the prospects of our own children, because those brown kids will represent a larger and larger share of America's workforce. Our Constitution is a remarkable, beautiful gift. But it's really just a piece of parchment. It has no power on its own. We, the people, give it power. We, the people, give it meaning with our participation and with the choices that we make. Michelle Lamont Robinson, girl of the South Side, for the past 25 years, you have not only been my wife and mother of my children, you have been my best friend. Malia and Sasha wore the burden of years in the spotlight so easily. Of all that I have done in my life, I am most proud to be your dad. You were the first decision I made as a nominee, and it was the best. My fellow Americans, it has been the honor of my life to serve you. I won't stop. In fact, I will be right there with you as a citizen for all my remaining days. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Thank you. God bless you.
So I won't get into politics. That's not why we're here. But you have to acknowledge a great public speaker when you see one. Even though he was at that podium, he utilized a lot of the things that we discussed this afternoon to his advantage. You know, his tone, his gestures, his hands. He spoke with his hands really well. You know, he engaged the audience. All of those things came over time. I'm pretty sure of him practicing, knowing what he does well, what he doesn't do well, and just working and improving on those things throughout the many years in his career as a politician. So with that, I want to say thank you for attending the second part of this webinar series on public speaking. And I challenge you, if you are someone that struggles with public speaking, 1 to 2 minute video, record yourself. And if you're confident in what you've recorded, to post it to one of your social media platforms and use the hashtag Public Speaking 101. You can tag myself, MOtacular, in the post, or More for More Incorporated. I'm going to take this time for questions. Anyone have any questions?
Hi, Mo. This is Aisha. I have 2 questions.
Okay.
When you're doing public speaking or speaking publicly, what do you think is, I guess, better or easier, or what, I guess what should you prioritize? Like understanding like the content that you're talking about, or like your confidence in delivering it, like delivery versus content, basically. Like, what do you think a person that's speaking publicly should prioritize?
Well, I think it depends on your audience, because if it's an audience that you're more comfortable with, you deliver great content just by being confident. It doesn't necessarily have to be 100% perfect, but as long as you're confident in what you're speaking on, it comes across really well. The audience receives it well. So I would say confidence over content.
Thank you. My last question, you talked about this, like the fillers, the ums and the uhs and the ands. Like, do you have just any like best practices on how to overcome that tendency? Because I think that's what I struggle with the most. Because I tend to want to talk, or when I'm speaking publicly, I tend to want to speak how I talk, So like, is there anything that you would suggest to help people overcome that?
Practice.
Mm-hmm.
When you have feedback from other people and say, you said this many times, or you said
yeah
times, and I really struggled paying attention to what you were trying to get across, then
right.
you're conscious of, okay, so if someone close to me noticed that, I know people that don't know me so well definitely picked up on that, and
Right.
you train yourself to become aware and self-conscious of it. So instead of saying or and or one of those distraction words, you actually take the time to pause. If you notice, while I was speaking here, I paused quite a few times because it allowed me not to use that filler word.
Got you. Yeah.
Kind of, gather my thoughts to
Yeah.
know what to say next.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Mo, so I have one question.
Okay.
It may be a little loaded, but as I mentioned before, when I was working on content this week, I started to notice on camera that even though I may have felt excited on the inside about the information that I was sharing, it was not translating on the outside or on camera. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, what are the best practices to be able to deliver, your message, whether that's you trying to be inspirational or being excited, and being able to also deliver a message with, I guess, power or intent without coming across as being not genuine. Like, so when I was, on camera and I was trying to be, excited and happy, I didn't feel as if I was being my actual self, because I was like, dang, I'm not always super bubbly. But at the same time, it's like you have to give a little bit of that and do it as natural as possible to be able to connect with your audience.
Right. And I actually struggle with that too. Because I'm calm, cool, and collected. If I have to give a speech and be inspirational or a little bit more bubbly, I tend to find myself practicing in the mirror. Look at myself from the audience point of view. What am I doing? What I'm doing in the mirror, does it come across as bubbly, or does it come across as inspiring? Practicing, it really, really helps, because you're able to go over it a few times, become comfortable, allow your body to become comfortable with those gestures. Like, the mirror helps a lot, or family and friends. Like, if you can find someone or a couple people that's willing to give honest feedback, and then also think of times that allow for you to tap into those emotions of you being bubbly, you being funny, a time that you've had to be inspired. You have kids, so I know that we have to do that a lot with our children. So you have to find the way to tap into that and then practice that to kind of keep it in your back pocket.
That's dope. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
So, sorry. Did you want to ask it?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So, sorry, I was trying to get my question together. Can you help me, Aisha?
We were talking about like speaking off the cuff, you know, just like I think that's another. Okay. Yeah, like what would you
Suggest
suggest for that, I guess? You know, like
feedback.
right.
Thank you.
So I went over this in the first part about your elevator pitch. Everyone needs to keep their elevator pitch close. It needs to be 30 seconds to 2 minutes tops. And that's something that you always have to pull out as needed. You know, you may be presenting particular information and you draw a blank, but you need to do a filler to keep going until the information comes back to you. I would say writing, I compared it to a freestyle. Like rappers write enough that they have content and you're like, they're freestyling, but it's really embedded in their brain that they're able to bring it up and use it as necessary. So it's really, I would say writing helps.
So, this is Christina. So, I want to know, because everything has, due to COVID, and just how everything is becoming more, I guess, virtual, yes. So what would you say, because like right now, when we have these video calls, sometimes you can get 2 people, sometimes you can have 30 people. So compared to public speaking, actually being on that stage, to presenting virtually, what would you say someone can do? Because like sometimes you don't know your audience. When you start talking, you really don't know who you're going to talk to, or like once this is like posted, you don't know how many people are going to view it. How do you stay motivated and confident when presenting on both platforms?
That's a good question. So when I had to do a webinar, mind you, there's over 22,000 people that work for the company that I work for. And I had to prepare for a webinar such as this, and something that I was supposed to be an expert in. I didn't know if it was going to be 2 people on that webinar or if it was going to be 20,000 people on that webinar. And in my preparation, what you have to keep in mind is knowing knowing what you do well, knowing how to stay engaged or enthusiastic, and just do that. Not really pay attention to the numbers. You know that this is something that you have to do, that you've been preparing for, and regardless of who's in the crowd, you're going to do what you've been practicing. That's really all that you can do. And when it comes to engaging with who's there, that's kind of tough when it comes to the virtual piece, unless you have a screen and you're able to see everyone's face, or if it's something where you make people register for the event. That would be a way, I would think, to kind of help gauge your audience to know how to prepare, whether you can, be a little bit relaxed or keep it strictly business.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions? Okay. Well, perfect. I am truly excited that we were able to collaborate on this particular topic for our professional development series. Mo, you have been always one of my fan favorites. And I'm so excited to collaborate with you on other things that we've actually spoken about. So this will be posted for anyone that wants to view it over and over again. So just look out for that. And so, see, there we go with the ums. I'm working on it. But with that being said, if you have any questions, Mo information is listed here. As you can see, we'll be posting a couple more things throughout the month on public speaking, and just be looking out for her and the things that she will be doing as well. And from here on, we will talk to you and see you later. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
And right there. Oh, you gotta stop.